Seated on the dais with me, now an old friend, a colleague in the aviation industry, Salil Gupte ji. A gentleman who represents a company that has always been the embodiment of new technology, reliability and perfection, a household name, General Electric, Vikram Rai ji, a gentleman who represents a paradigm shift in the way transportation will change across the world, and is bringing that in his firm resolve to this large market in India, Amit Datta ji. Gentleman who's in charge of heralding this event of the B20 from CII, Babu Khan Sahib, Minister of Industry, Government of Madhya Pradesh, Rajvardhan Singh ji Dattigaon Sahib, Additional Secretary in my ministry, Piyush Srivastav ji, Chairman of Airports Authority of India, Sanjeev Kumar ji, ladies and gentlemen, and if I may say so, my colleagues in the aviation space present here today. Let me start by welcoming all of you to the heart of India, represented by Madhya Pradesh, and to my home city, Gwalior. A city that has always been not only a witness but a participant in the evolution of the history of India. A city that probably very few of you are aware that has always been at the forefront of development and advancement present here today. Through the ages, Rajvardhan, economic, social and infrastructure. And let me give you an example of that. It was in Gwalior that we had a flying boat service, economic, social and infrastructure, England and Australia. And let me give you an example of that. In Madhav Sagar Lake, it was in Gwalior, the first water aerodrome that we had way before flying aerodromes were ever conceived in India. Economic, social and infrastructure. England and Australia. A city, and let me give you an example of that. In Madhav Sagar Lake, it was in Gwalior, the first water aerodrome, the concept of domestic flying aerodromes were ever conceived in economic, social and England and Australia. A city, and let me give you first cities that was on the aviation in Gwalior. Way before independence, the concept of domestic flying aerodromes were ever conceived in economic, social and Australia. City, And let me give you that was on the aviation in 1940. The concept of domestic aviation, aerodromes were ever conceived in India, that put in place the North Indian Transport Company for bus transport, not only across Gwalior state, but across North India. And many of you will be surprised to know, which was post-independence, rechristened, if you will, in its new avatar as the Delhi Transport Corporation, or the DTC as you and I know it in Delhi today. So Gwalior has been the seed for many a national transformation in the area of travel and infrastructure. And today I welcome you to my home city, to one of the most historical cities in India, and I certainly do hope that all my delegates present here today not only get a vista and a flavor of the economic capability of this region, but also of its cultural capability, and do visit some of the sites in Gwalior during the day and certainly during the evening as well, to get a vista into the cultural capability and the soft power that our country also portends for the rest of the world. In the area of aviation, many of you who may have come by air to Gwalior, I know some of you came by train, but those of you who came by air have probably seen the new integrated domestic terminal that we are putting in place in the city of Gwalior. And I'm going to use that as an example. This domestic terminal, which will encompass close to 2.5 lakh square feet, with 4 aero bridges, all the latest infrastructure that any airport possesses in the country. The foundation stone for this was laid on the 16th of October last year by the Home Minister. And I guarantee all of you sitting here today that this airport, in the 75 years of independence, our Amrit Kal that we are going through, will be built in the shortest record-breaking time in a period of 15 months in Gwalior before the end of the year. The round of applause for that goes not to me, but my colleague, the chairman of the Airports Authority of India, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar. Please stand up. And look at the transformation. The transformation that Salil talked about, the transformation that Vikram talked about. Not someday, but today. Not a gap of 17 years between travel, but daily travel for every commuter. Not the old stodgy setup of governmental companies. But it gives me great pride that my Airports Authority of India, a governmental undertaking, a PSU, today will set the record beyond any private sector company of setting up a 2.5 lakh square feet airport at a cost of 500 crores and above in the shortest 15-month window time frame in the history of India, ladies and gentlemen. That to you is a testament to how India has changed, how government has changed, how the private sector is leapfrogging We did not move when we moved to cellular telephony, like in the rest of the world, first to analog and then to digital. We moved directly to digital. And similarly in the area of aerospace, as Vikram was saying, in every sector, convenience for passengers, making sure facilities are in place, facilitation of customers, making sure airports are large, making sure that we have enough airplanes, making sure safety and security. DGCA and BCAS are on the cusp of a curve of customer service, where every platform must become digital. BCAS today has 298 services that have moved from physical form to digital form. DGCA has 298 services, BCAS has 55 services that have moved to digital form. So government has transformed. Perform, reform, and transform. That is the Prime Minister's mantra for not only government, for the rest of India, and which has resulted in a universal change across the length and breadth of India. And therefore I will continue with the theme that my two predecessors have started with. Now it is time for the aerospace industry players to supplant themselves in India. And there are multiple reasons for that. A sector that had only 74 airports in this country, in the period of the last 9 years, has moved the envelope from 74 to 148 airports, waterdromes, and heliports. And let me commit to you that our journey has not ended. In the next 3 to 5 years, we will take that number upwards of 200. That is my guarantee to you. In the airplane sector, as Vikram said, we had 400 planes in 2014. Today we are almost at 700 aircraft. And two companies, look at the transformation of Air India. A bold decision of disinvestment. And look at the transformation that one single bold decision in this country has brought about for the complete aerospace industry in this country. Not only for passengers, not only for airports, but for MROs, for our aerospace manufacturing sector, for our cargo handling. A single order of 470 aircraft, upwards of $70 billion. The largest aircraft order in the history of aviation in the world today has been done by an Indian company, Air India. And followed up very shortly by Indigo's 500 plane order. And while Vikram talked about the biggies, there are many others in this space that have mushroomed, that have been given birth in the last 6 to 7 years. Both in the narrow-bodied aircraft category with Akasa. For 20 years we've been hearing about airlines shutting down in our country. For the first time in 2 decades, we are now hearing about airlines being born in our country. Akasa, 15 months ago, started with 2 aircraft. In 15 months, they are today at 20 aircraft. 10x growth in 15 months. Vikram talked about Iran. The one monumental change that the Prime Minister has brought about in the civil aviation sector Civil aviation was always considered as an elitist product. Not an elite product, but an elitist product, catering to only a few in our country. With उड़े देश का आम नागरिक, हवाई चप्पल पहनने वाला भी हवाई जहाज में उड़े. With Udan Yojana, the democratization of civil aviation has happened in our country. 479 routes that were never thought of being plied before. 1.25 crore passengers that earlier would only sit in their fields or in their houses and watch an aircraft flying overhead. Through the viability gap funding model today, like Vikram in his childhood, when he flew from Delhi to Dehradun, are today participants in the history of civil aviation being unfolded in our country. 2.34 lakh flights. And most importantly, probably a point that all of you have not heard of, through Udan has spawned the birth of 4 new regional airlines in our country. India One Air, Flybig, Star Air, Fly 91. From Embraer jets to ATRs to 18-seaters to yesterday I inaugurated a flight between Bhubaneswar and Utkela. 500-kilometer distance that would take 9 hours to cross. An 8-seater aircraft that would make it convenient for people to travel in an hour and 15 minutes from Utkela to Bhubaneswar and catch an international flight. So the hub and spoke network that we have been talking about for decades, today that is a reality in India, ladies and gentlemen. Airports in areas that you would never even contemplate. Airports in cities that were wiped off the civil aviation map post-World War II are being reborn today. Jharsuguda on the other coast of Orissa, Rupsi in Assam, Tezu in Arunachal Pradesh, Kishangarh, Ajmer Sharif in Rajasthan. Today, Darbhanga in Bihar, airports that are contributing between 50,000 to 5 lakh passengers a day in civil aviation today. This is the new reality of the new India. An India in which in 2014 we had 6 crore passengers. Today we have 14.5 crore passengers. And I make this point at this B20 conference in Gwalior today. By 2035, our India will have from 14.5 crore passengers, 42.5 crore passengers in the next 12 years, ladies and gentlemen. That is the potential for international companies to look at within India. And mind you, when we talk about penetration rates, 14.5 crore passengers, most of them are multiple flyers. So when you look at discrete passengers, you're only talking about 14.5 crore passengers means 10% penetration on a population of 140 crores. But when you look at discrete flyers, you're only talking about 3 to 4% penetration in India. Which means what? You have 96% more potential to go. And let me give you a vignette of where we are in terms of civil aviation. The railways, which is my closest competitor, and within the railway segment, I'm only going to talk about first AC and second AC, because my product by its very nature is air conditioned. So first AC and second AC in India today carries 18.5 crore passengers. Civil aviation carries 14.5 crore passengers. However, the CAGR of railways, the compounded annual growth rate of railways, is 5.6%. And the CAGR of my sector is 10.3%. By 2030 or 35, civil aviation sector will carry more passengers than first AC and second AC of railways in this country, ladies and gentlemen. So that is the potential. When you look at that potential, now comes the responsibility of all of you seated in this room. It is time to supplant aerospace manufacturing and integrated value chains within India. Many of you have set up assemblies, many of you have set up sub-assemblies in different parts of the country. And there are multiple examples of that. Safran has set up an Indian supply chain for LEAP engines. Is also establishing a manufacturing cluster in Hyderabad. Boeing and GMR are setting up a P2F, passenger to freight conversion capability. Boeing has also been committed to manufacturing in India. The fuselages of the Apache helicopters are manufactured in India. The tail fins of the 737s are manufactured in India. The appendages of the C-130J Hercules aircraft are manufactured in India. And there are multiple companies that are looking at assemblies and sub-assemblies in India. From Collins Aerospace, that looks at seats, looks at harnesses, looks at a product that hopefully will never be used in India, which is the chute, the escape chute of aircraft. I visited that facility myself. The capability and the technical know-how is second to none in those facilities. But along with international majors, India is also pushing forward and pioneering itself in the area of aerospace. 20 years ago, we could not conceive the fact that an Indian company would manufacture an advanced light helicopter in India. Today, that's a reality. An Indian company would manufacture an Indian fighter jet in India. Today, that is a reality. Indian companies together in the space sector, where most of our technology was borrowed from Russia. Our boosters would come from Europe. The takeoff sequence would occur in Russia. Today, an Indian orbiter with Indian jets, Indian technology from A to Z took off from Sriharikota on Indian land, and that Chandrayaan 3 today has landed on the moon. So our Tiranga flies high not only in India, ladies and gentlemen. Our Tiranga flies high not only across the world, but our Tiranga today has been supplanted on the south pole of the lunar surface. That is the capability that India brings to the table. And therefore I believe, and as Vikram said, we have graduated from being the 10th largest economic power in 2014 to the 5th largest. But from where we are today, by 2030, which is in the next 7 years, we will graduate from becoming the 5th largest economic superpower to the third largest economic superpower, going ahead of even Germany and Japan. And therefore India has tremendous capabilities. India has tremendous possibilities for all of you. 17% of the world's population. The most skilled manpower that any country in the world possesses. Today, capital has become fungible. Capital has become a commodity. It is human resource that is the biggest punji, the biggest wealth in the world today. And my Bharat Mata has the maximum amount of it across the world, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore the time has come for all of you to think afresh. For internal reasons that I have talked about. For tremendous capabilities and immense possibilities that I have enumerated. But as I talk about our comparative advantages, as I talk about our competitive advantages, it is also in the fullness of things and the fitness of things that to offset your risks, the risks that Salil talked about, geopolitical risks, supply chain logistics risks, companies across the world are looking for a new promised land. At that new promised land, ladies and gentlemen, is the land on which your feet are supplanted on this morning in Gwalior, in my country, in India, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore the time is today. I really do believe that there is a yawning gap today between supply and demand. There was a time in COVID when my airplanes were on the ground and I had no passengers. Today the world moves exceedingly fast from a situation where we were trying to save companies, airline companies across the world. Today we are in a position where we can't find enough planes to fly our passengers. India today is cresting. There are many pundits out there who said India will take 10 years to recover. 4.25 lakh passengers was the high pre-COVID in 2019. It will take us 10 years to go back there. Within 8 months of COVID passing us by, in a non-cyclical high period, low period, generally October to Jan is your high season. Feb to May is your low season. Your holiday season starts in late April. Late April to June, July before monsoon is your high season. In the month of end of March and early of April, we were posting passenger daily numbers of 4.56 lakh passengers per day within 9 months of COVID, ladies and gentlemen. So India has transformed. Today, if there is one issue that confronts every citizen across the world, it is the paucity of time. And therefore, air travel with economies of scale coming in place. Ticket prices falling, number of flights growing, just like what happened with mobile phones. Today, the transformation has occurred in the civil aviation space in India. And therefore, I would order for all of you to look at India very seriously, and let me rephrase that, not look at India, but take that step. Because this country is the ready platform for you if there is one anywhere in the world. Today, Boeing exports close to $1 billion worth of assemblies from India. Airbus exports almost $650 million. worth of sub-assemblies from India. And there is one international major which has taken that firm step. Airbus and Tata in their joint venture have taken that firm step of building the C-295 aircraft for the defense services to start with at Vadodara in India with an investment of close to 25,000 crores. A total order of 56 aircraft, out of which 16 aircraft will come completely ready-made from their facility in Spain, and the balance 40 aircraft will be made nowhere else but in Vadodara in India. Close to 5,500 assemblies will be supplied for that aircraft. Indian companies like Bharat Dynamics and a couple of others will be supplying the radar equipment and the deployment equipment for that aircraft. And that itself will bring about a tremendous amount of innovation within India, I believe. In the space of MROs, when I took charge in 2021, we completely redid the MRO policy. There was an earlier policy which charged exorbitant royalties, exorbitant land rates. We did away with all that because we wanted to bring in a new level of energy into the space. And I'm glad to report to you that now we have from 113 almost 140 MROs. Safran has committed $150 million to set up its facility within India as a greenfield MRO facility in one of our metro airports, initially servicing close to 500 engines going up to 1,000 engines. And therefore the Prime Minister's vision for India, make in India but make for the world, truly has become a reality for all of us in India today and for the world. So on this day, as we start off this conference, I'd like to wish you all the very best in your deliberations, but I would also like to urge you to look at Madhya Pradesh, which is my home state, very seriously. It is a state that represents tremendous economic potential. Our industry minister is here. We will put in place, and we've put in place very facilitative policies to attract investment into Madhya Pradesh. And I am very confident that this conference will lead to many, many new decisions happening from this space that will lead to creating a world-class MRO airspace manufacturing capabilities within India, underlined by the fact that they are safe, they are secure, they are profitable, they are competitive, and most importantly, they are environmentally sustainable. I look forward to hearing from all of you post your deliberations, and I wish you all the very best at this B20 conference and welcome you once again to my home city in Gwalior, and thanks CII for organizing this event. Thank you very much.